There is one person in your life who does not want you to succeed. You have to be honest about it and have that hard conversation. My name is Julie Halunga. I'm a leadership trainer and executive coach, working with professionals to develop into leaders who lead with influence and authority. Last year, my business grew by 35%. I ended the year on a high, thinking I could do anything. The first quarter rolled around, and all of a sudden, I started having these conversations with myself that it was a fluke, that I didn't deserve it. What kind of value do I really add to my clients? Can I really impact an entire organization or change the way a team communicates? And yet, on a daily basis, I have clients telling me how useful our conversations are, how they change the way they communicate with others, how they take command of their own careers. My clients who are flying under the radar weren't even on anyone's notice. No one was noticing them. They were getting promotions. And I was nominated to speak on the TEDx stage. And yet, I still have those conversations in my head, that voice of the inner critic just chirping away at what I don't deserve, where I don't belong, questioning the value that I add. Sound familiar? The first person you need to love is yourself. You need to lead yourself in a positive and constructive way. Would you ever talk to your best friend or your son or your daughter the way you talk to yourself? Would that inner critic's voice that's in your head ever hit your mouth and your lips and share it with someone else? Probably not. You need to have an intervention with your inner critic. My first recommendation is to name it, personify it, even come up with an image in your head of what it might look like. Mine is Scott. Secondly, you need to acknowledge what they're saying. So often we just try to push it aside, sweep it under the rug, never mind, I don't believe that. But the voice still keeps coming back. There's no other way to silence or at least turn down the volume on your inner critic if you don't acknowledge it. Acknowledge what they're saying. Second, Little Miss Perfect never changed the world because she was so busy being perfect. For women, we focus on this perfection. We review that PowerPoint or that email or that presentation time and time and time again. And at a certain point, it's having diminishing returns. We've all been there. For men, it's about not admitting our vulnerabilities or where we don't feel we have an expertise. So I recommend to you to recognize where your strengths are and where there's an opportunity for growth or maybe to bring someone else in. Acknowledge that, the reality of that. And finally, record the hope, delete the hate. Your mind is like a DVR. For those of us who are in our 30s and 40s, you know what a DVR is. Being a leader is the playback. How can you lead someone else to be an effective and influential leader if you're not acknowledging the doubts in your head? The doubts that, can I really do this? Do I belong here? Do I deserve this raise or promotion? So what you want to do is pay attention to that inner critic's voice. Recognize it. Acknowledge the truth. You're right. I've never been here before. I've never dealt with a sale this big. I've never dealt with a client this large. But I spent the last decade working on these issues. I know this industry backwards and forwards. You are distinguishing the difference between the truth and the lies. You don't belong here, that goes in the lie category. I've worked in this industry for the last decade and I know it forwards and backwards. That's the truth. When you make that distinction between the truth and the lies, you are able to turn down the volume on your inner critic. By turning down that volume, you can then acknowledge it, then you can push it aside. But you've dealt with it. So it's not going to come back at the same force and the same volume that it has in the past. And finally, kick that inner critic to the curb. Let it go. Be done with it. As you practice these 3 steps, you will get to the point that when the inner critic's voice comes to your head, you will be able to turn it down in about 10 seconds. I guarantee this. I don't promise too much, but this one I know. With practice, you will recognize that it's the inner critic's voice talking, not your own. You will make the distinction between what's true and what's lies. And then you will kick it to the curb. You will silence it. You will turn the volume way down on that critic so that you can approach any situation, any challenge, any individual with confidence and conviction. And you will be able to lead with influence and authority. If this is something you feel you need to work on more, go to startwithjulie.com and contact me, and let's see how we can work together to silence that inner critic and help you communicate and influence with authority.